everyone, to episode 53 of High Tech on the Low. Meiran, how are you this morning?
Hello, thank you for having me. It's good to be over here.
Thank you for coming. Really, we're very excited to have you here and to do everything. As always, we're sponsored by Front Team with 12 communities, 6 verticals, and 3,000 members all looking to connect. And, you know, it's very interesting because we're talking about the world of connection. We're talking about all the new things that are going on in the cyberspace. And you at Saitail are doing something that, in my opinion, is very unique. I know it's something that's growing as a, interest and field of interest in the cyberspace and in tech. But, you know, it's very unique. So let's just jump right into it. You know, Meiran Galis is here with us, CEO and co-founder of Saitail. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what Saitail is about, and we'll just jump right into everything.
All right, great. So the origin of the word Saitail, basically it's a cryptographic cipher from the 7th century before count. So this is the basic of the word, and I like it because it was somehow connected and still mysterious regarding what we do. For many things, compliance is not really interesting, as you said.
Sure.
And I've been working at EY. I was managing a team, 100 companies a year. I've been auditing them for information security and other kind of security certification for technology companies. Mm-hmm. And I just saw the need, how much those people, CTOs, CISOs, CEOs, VP R&D were exhausted from the process. Mm-hmm. And I really felt that it could be done better. EY back in the days,
like the whole compliance could be done better.
Much better.
Wow. Okay.
Much better.
Wow.
Because in the past, and still till this day, compliance is made by an annual basis audit. Uh-huh. So this is something that the company will just go a day by day.
Right.
And one day in the year or 1 week over a year,
sure,
an auditor will come and just test the company. And that's not in-depth enough, you know, and
doesn't sound in-depth at all. Basically, it says like once a year, you're basically telling me, oh, hey, do you comply? Are you following? You know, it's
exactly.
like, what is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the story.
Wow.
Now, you have different methodologies. Like for the American market, you have the SOC 2, which this is right now the gold standard for SaaS compliance.
Okay.
Because over there, you're going to be audited over a period of time, and the auditor will check the effectiveness of your internal controls.
Got you. Okay.
I don't know if controls means something for our people that listen to the podcast.
Why don't you explain it a little bit? What do you mean when you say controls? Like in that sense, you know, if I have SOC 2 compliance, what does that mean for me?
All right, good question. Most basic is we can take code reviews.
Okay.
For developers.
Sure.
Many developers using GitHub, GitLab,
sure,
Bitbucket.
Right.
And they need to do code review.
Okay.
But sometimes when you're small or when you're big, it's really depend. Code review is not mandatory. And as part of a compliance, a change management process is mandatory. So someone else that need to approve the code and configure this through the platform, this is crucial.
Okay.
And this is one control. So code review as part of the pull request, this is a mandatory control. For example.
So it's kind of like the lock, if you will. It's like basically saying like you have to pass this to get the compliance. So that's when you say controls, it's like the level of saying now we've made it, boom, next step.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you need to verify that all of your developers in all teams, in all repositories, will be in compliance with this control that you defined.
Wow.
It can also be like some specific password or multi-factor authentication or basically anything that should reduce the risk of the company to an acceptable level. So this is the idea.
Okay.
And then you have different frameworks. You have the SOC 2 from the US market, and you have the ISO 27001 for the European market.
Right.
And it's really depend because in SOC 2 you look backwards over a period of time.
Okay.
And in ISO you look forward for continuous improvement.
So if we mix them together, the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Okay, but clearly we're not doing that. So
yeah.
So then you come in and you say, hey guys, we provide you compliance, you know, some type of compliance standard here, or we are making you comply. So what is that? How do you guys do that?
All right. That's a good question because always you have a few parties that need to be involved. You have the customer,
right.
You have the company,
of
the
course.
startup.
Yeah.
And then you have the auditor, the entity that come and actually test the company.
Right, and making sure that they're actually compliant.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, you know, for startups, not only for startups, for tech companies, they first of all, they want to pass successfully.
Okay.
They don't want to fail in this certification.
What happens if they do? Do they have to just go back to the drawing board, or could it like end the whole process? Like what happens?
So it really depends on the framework. But for example, in SOC 2, they will need to rate to wait another 6 months for a retest.
Wow.
Because the auditor checked the controls over a period of time.
So they could burn cash and burn all this stuff as they're just developing again, basically?
In the meanwhile, they will need to send report with failed result for their prospect and potential customers. And you don't want to send a failed report for your potential customer.
Yeah, then you don't have a business in 6 months, so it doesn't even matter.
Exactly.
But okay, so they do that, and now you guys come in and you say, hey, we're here to help you.
Exactly. So to simplify it, if you think about it, back in the days, it used to be like with Excel, hundreds of rows, hundreds of folders on Google Drive or Box, collecting evidence, something you can prove a control.
Right.
This is hundreds of action items the company actually need to do every single year. So that's consuming hundreds of hours at the end of the day. And for companies that want to build lean, to work fast, to move fast, to develop and sell the product, suddenly putting the CTO or some tech people time invested in compliance and not in developing the product, this is a big thing for companies. It's just put them on hold until they're going to complete with the compliance. And
right.
it's not very effective for the company. And this is why we're trying to solve all of these time-consuming, complex and tedious process,
right?
Streamline everything into one place,
sure.
Put it as simple as possible, automate whatever can be automated, and also put our AI engine inside, and just like pack everything together to give them the security compliance package they need in order to save basically hundreds of hours of time and get successful results.
So it's kind of like to make them almost comply without them thinking about it. Just like, here you go, don't worry, almost in a sense. You're like the don't worry package is how I would describe it. Like, here, come, do your thing, make sure it works, make sure it's compliance, fire and forget, as they say, right? That's so cool to me. I think that's like really unique. Now, where, you come from EY. Now, obviously you're saying you were seeing all this, in your prior position, right? What made you say, I want to get into tech now and actually, build my own company to solve this? Because in many ways you could have just stayed at EY. Everyone knows EY,
Yeah. So look, in EY, it was fun.
Right.
I met with hundreds of companies in the United States and Israel.
Sure.
Met great people, fly lots of time aboard, but I really felt that it could be done better because I was working with those people, with CISOs, CTOs, and I saw how stressed they were and exhausted and picking up everything, and like they have so many other stuff that they need to do in the same time.
Okay.
And I saw the benchmark and what was going outside.
Okay.
I was doing customer interviews and understand what my customer feels. And I have my own intuition.
Right.
I try to move things at EY, but it was difficult. It's
a big organization. Yeah, a lot of bureaucracy, I imagine.
Yeah, it's like, it's a huge ship. So to make a turn, it's very, very difficult.
Right.
So I understand that I could not do it in EY. Mm-hmm. Also, there was other incentive, the auditor incentive and the customer incentive.
Uh-huh.
It's maybe very different. So I decided to leave EY. I partnered with an investor.
Sure.
And then established Saitail AI.
Okay.
With the purpose to make my previous customer SaaS startups life easier.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
well, you kind of poached from EY there? No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, like, when you're first, going, and, kind of, I don't know, testing the market with this whole Saitail idea, what was the kind of response at first? I'd love to hear it also from both the client and the investor side, because I imagine that there was a bit of a difference there, at least, how you were able to sell this to the former EY SaaS companies that you were working with, who probably were, in my mind, I'm thinking are like, oh my God, this is incredible, versus the investor who's like, why do I need this? Is that kind of what happened, or?
Kind of. Look, customer decided, but understand the value. But I can separate between first timers.
Okay.
Every startup that need to do this for the first time.
Sure.
And time is limited, resources are limited, and they need to move fast.
Of course.
At the end of the day, time is critical.
You need to be dynamic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
And second timers or third timers that already know the deal. They've been there, they've done that, but still they know how much effort they need to put into it.
Right.
And they want to make it smarter, faster, simpler. And this is two different things. And so I had an idea. I built my pitch deck,
right.
And I met my current investor. That was a big RegTech group operating from the UK and South Africa.
Oh, cool.
And they have branches all over the world.
Okay.
And they're doing like compliance, but in the financial perspective.
What does that mean?
Like withholding tax
Okay,
claim,
gotcha.
VAT refund,
Sure.
import-export regulation, stuff like that.
Okay.
So I was coming with security compliance, and that was interesting for them because it was very, in a way, similar for their current portfolio.
Right.
It was compliance, but totally new. It was security compliance.
Right. It's totally different than what they're used to.
Exactly. They didn't know that field at all at the beginning.
Okay.
So I had to explain to them.
Right.
And what's the potential market?
Okay.
What's the product?
Right.
What's the pain, my solution, and etc. And this is how we built our relationship until we signed the agreement and start building Saitail.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just like were picking them up like as you could, wherever you could in that sense. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. We at the moment I have one investor.
Really?
Yeah. They are the main big investor.
Wow.
And we're working together. They have 15,000 clients worldwide. So we do work together. But also, we are in the Israeli swamp. And we are very connected to the US market
Right.
and in additional markets as well for the UK
Wow.
and more. So we actually have a business activity in all of those markets. We have customers from those markets.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. How long have you guys been around?
Like less than 18 months, like 16 months.
And you have all that activity? That's incredible. That's like incredible growth. That's accelerated growth in my mind. I mean, that's incredible. First of all, congrats. That's incredible. Now, when you went for this investor, it sounds very much like it was a strategy play for you because it was kind of like, you said, okay, you have 50,000 customers from what you just told me. So 50,000 customers around the world. Now I can basically not only, grow my business, but also I can pilot the solution. How has the product kind of developed since, let's say, 18 months ago when you first started to now?
All right. So look, in the beginning, it was, I had to find my CTO.
Okay.
And it was only me. So I was looking for almost 4 months for the best CTO I could find.
Okay.
A genius guy. His name is Tom. And
Thank you,
in
Tom.
the meanwhile, I was also interviewing customer. I want to see how it feels, not from the auditor side, but from the customer side.
Okay.
I find my first customer in the United States. My second customer is also in the United States. And I start doing everything manually by myself.
Wow.
Like managing the audit in front of EY, and KPMG and the auditor.
Okay.
And, just building everything from scratch, start collecting the evidence and going all the way to the finish line. Now, doing that actually taught me a lot. I understand and I had better picture of how I think the product should look like.
Sure.
I studied information systems, so I had some background in technology and how I should design all of these diagrams
Sure.
and everything that actually I could give to the CTO when he came to the company.
Okay.
And this
So it wasn't like he was
how-
coming in blind, basically. He kind of you at least set up the basis for him.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. He knew because he's not an expert in compliance. He
Okay.
understands security.
Okay.
But still, there is a difference between security and compliance. It's like connected but still different.
Okay.
And actually, we started with consulting. That was the initial of the company. I was consulting for companies, learning from experience, and then I took the best and what I thought was the most important in the beginning, that my quick wins. I was looking for all of those quick wins that I could build fast, deliver fast, and give some value fast for the customer.
Sure.
And this is how we started.
That's amazing. That's crazy. It's also interesting to see how you guys went from basically service to product almost in that sense,
Exactly.
right? Because that's not, most people, it's not a very easy shift. I mean, even mentally speaking, it's not an easy shift, but definitely commercially, business-wise, I mean, that's very hard. You're basically saying, I'm changing from, being client-facing, working with the client to just, hey, here's a product, apply. Or, of course, a little bit more than that, but, general idea. Now, I want to go back to something that you actually said before, which was this thing about security versus compliance. And that I want to kind of dive into with you a little bit, because I find it to be something that's often misunderstood, because also right now we always hear, especially, this whole cyber security. We need cyber security, cyber defense. We need to be proactive. We need to do all these things. Yet in my mind, from what you're kind of telling me, is that if you're already compliant, then you kind of already save yourself a large amount of headache and you don't necessarily need all these cybersecurity solutions. That's what I'm thinking, but maybe I'm wrong. So I'd love to hear it from you about kind of what's the difference between compliance and security and maybe also where they overlap.
All right, that's a good question. Look, I think that fear is limitless. You can also, an hacker, if he has enough time and enough resources, he can also try more and more ways to penetrate and actually find a vulnerability and make some threat for your company.
Sure.
So in this essence, this is like, it's enormous. It's endless. But compliance is actually making everything in a sort, because you need to do both application security and you need to protect your different, all of the SaaS tool that you are using and mapping all your assets basically,
right,
and crafting the policies and procedure within the company, and doing risk assessment. So how do you take all of these, like, many different stuff that you need to do in order to get a robust security in the company?
Right.
How do you manage everything? So you need to utilize some framework, some standards, something that you will put in order in this mess, and you need to decide. Basically, the CISO, the CTO, they will have to decide which framework best works for them.
Right.
And my approach over that is that they should not use any framework as a check the box mentality. This is something that can give them a value. Many times people looking at compliance, I only need this to enable sales. And I will do this as fast as possible. I want to see what is the minimum required.
Right.
And just go all the way, achieve this, and make the sales.
Basically, I just don't want to get sued, in a sense.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I don't want to make sued.
Yeah,
And I want to, to deliver. I want to sign the deal. I want to sign the deal.
That's it. Okay.
And that's it. Now, these companies, if they're already doing that, they're already spending the time over compliance.
Sure.
So understand how do you can combine everything together. Like if you're using like a source code, vulnerability scanner, like Sneak or White Source,
right?
And you also use anything to scan your backend and production environment, like Nessus or Rapid7.
Sure.
So these are different tools, but eventually, you can combine everything. Like everything should be customized and true for the company. There is no one size fits all, because every company have their own processes, their own procedures. Some companies will be managing onboarding of new employees through Bob or Bamboo or any other HR tool. And some other will doing that through Monday or ClickUp or Asana.
Right.
So it really depends what works for the company.
Sure.
And once they agree on something, they should be able to implement the procedure, and then just monitoring the effectiveness. It can be manually or automatically, but this is how I see everything working together.
Well, it's kind of like this comprehensive ecosystem is what you're saying, and that you guys are almost, the way I see it is like you guys are the laces, tying it all together in a sense, because you can have the security, you can have the development ecosystem, you can have all the other parts of kind of the machine working together, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the overarching compliance, basically you're lost. Now, it's, to me, I'd love to understand too this whole customizable aspect of compliance. What is that exactly? How do you customize compliance? Because to me, isn't compliance is supposed to be one standard, right? Like SOC 2. We all know SOC 2, right? Or ISO. How does that work? How do you customize compliance?
All right, that's a good question, because look, there is a difference between ISO and SOC. Let's start with SOC 2. In SOC 2, you actually get in guidelines. It's criteria with guidelines.
Sure.
It's in a very high level. And the company will need to design controls that suits for them. Map them in according for the relevant criteria.
Sure.
And then just approve it with the auditor. But when they are designing a control, it should be a control that fits for them. For example, let's say that the company wants to, maybe they don't want to do code review. Maybe they want to manage the merge. I don't know. Maybe they have using Okta. Maybe they don't use Okta, and they managing like all the authentication for all the critical tools directly within the tools. So it depends. So you should understand the business objective, and then you should understand the risk. What is the risk in everything? Because I always ask my customer, look, if you don't believe in any control, please let me know. I don't want to waste your time. All right? So because many of them just, let's do it because they asking. Okay, but why they are asking? Think about that. If you don't believe, I can explain to you. So
you can explain to you what you need to do, and then just you go do it yourself in a sense, right?
Exactly. So some of the thing, of course, like they are the company. They know the company best. So they should know what works for them.
Okay.
Some of them want to do risk assessment monthly, quarterly, or annually.
Okay.
Some of them will want to implement different kind of controls because maybe they have a very specific SLA for customers. This is also part of the SOC too.
Right.
Our customer can communicate with the company. Do they have more than one way to communicate? Do they have only like email? Maybe they have a chat on the website. Maybe there is a phone. So if something happened, how can I communicate with the company?
Right.
And that could be a control. Where is all the knowledge and how to and product manual? Like someone should explain about the product.
Definitely.
So where is it happening? So all of this, writing and actually documentation is a big portion of every compliance, and every company will need to understand that documentation. Once they decided to go for compliance, maybe, and also if they are a startup of 10 people, 20 people, 5 people, it's not enough just to ask your friend, please give me access. It needs to be documented. It's you need to have a specific process or procedure.
Right.
It can be like a Jira ticket.
Sure.
It can be a Slack.
Right.
It can be anything that will document. Someone will ask something and someone else will approve it.
But it needs to be documented.
It needs to be documented.
Interesting.
And this is something companies need to understand because they're afraid many times that it's going to put some efforts and it's going to be time consuming, which it is. But this is part of the journey of compliance, of growth. And once they want to grow, they want to sell to enterprise, to corporates.
Right.
This is something that it's crucial and they need to understand. But it doesn't have to take so long and be so exhausted as it used to be.
I get you. It also sounds like, I mean, really, like this is the bread and butter of growth in a sense, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're a small startup trying to either get in bed with a large enterprise or kind of a big partner, and even vice versa, if you're a big partner who's just getting looked at, basically, you need this to grow and you need to be following these compliance rules. Now, you kind of talked about where, compliance is today and stuff like that. Now, obviously, when you were first starting out in the world of compliance in EY, a few years ago, you probably saw that, it was still kind of maybe, I wouldn't say nascent, but it was like growing, it was changing, there was different rules. Where is the world of compliance headed today? Because especially now with, cloud technology being adopted at, lightning rates, basically, all these different types of new, ways of kind of decentralized communication and all sorts of things. Where is the world of compliance headed to? It seems like it's almost becoming much more difficult and much more hard to kind of, regulate. But at the same time, it's still super important for us.
I agree. And need to understand that the main purpose of compliance is to build trust. People want to build trust
100%.
And compliance is a tool in order for them to build trust.
Sure.
It's an effective tool. Maybe many times when companies trying to make sales, the enterprise, it's just going to be a checklist. And the first thing in the checklist, do you have ISO 27001? Right. Do you have SOC 2? Do you have any kind of compliance that's relevant for them?
Sure.
And look, in the past and still this day, I think compliance started based on countries and region. You have like
100%. We can agree.
European,
with that.
The US,
Right.
Different countries and different regions have their own compliance.
Right.
There is a difference between regulation and a standard.
Right.
Regulation, this is something that this is abiding by the law.
Right.
Right. And you can get a fine, a ticket. You can get lawsuits if you don't comply. Standard, this is a voluntary process. This is just a global, a voluntary global requirement from potential customer. This is a market requirement.
Of course.
So companies need to comply because of that reason. So it started with countries and regions. Afterwards, we see it grew for different industries, like the healthcare. They have the HIPAA
Right,
and
they have
iTrust.
HIPAA, right, exactly.
Payments, they have the PCI DSS.
Right.
Privacy, you have GDPR, CCPA. Now there is an upgrade for the CCPA.
Right. I know as a marketer, I know, believe me.
Yeah. You know all of this stuff.
Yeah, believe
so
me.
If you want to work with the federal agencies in the United States, you need to comply with the FedRAMP.
Right, okay.
This is the Rolls Royce or the hell of compliance. It depends on your perspective.
Right.
And now we're also starting to see compliance not only based on regions or industry, but also on technologies. Like take blockchain, for example.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. It's new.
Yeah, blockchain is new.
Right.
And it's new for everyone.
Right.
This is basically the source, the core of it. It's based on decentralized log everywhere. Right. So it's very difficult to comply. It's actually cut the the entity that need to, it cut the banks, it cut the insurance, it's cut entities that we used in the past in order to process money and have all of this documentation.
Sure.
So,
but is it actually better now in that sense because it allows you to document everything? I mean, because in a sense, if I'm on the blockchain, and I have my transaction recorded, it's already there for me. I don't need to. It's like it says I've complied, right? Or maybe not.
That's true, and that's great questions.
Okay.
And this day auditor asked the same questions.
Uh-huh.
How should we auditor blockchain-based technologies?
Wow.
It's difficult because the essence of this technology is basically to be compliant all the time. But sure, we're gonna see more and more frameworks over blockchain and Bitcoin, and not different cryptocurrencies, and blockchain has many utilization. And not only blockchain, you're gonna see like AI engines that get autonomous decision by themselves.
Wow.
So we need to audit and make sure that they are in compliance, that it makes sense, because
and prevent Skynet basically from taking over the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm just joking there, but
yeah. This is what we want to stop.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We don't want that. So, I'd love to also understand. Obviously, you guys, 18 months. Pretty impressive where you guys are at right now, I would have to say.
Thank you.
Where is Saitail heading? Can you tell me, is there any cool updates you can tell me about? I'm sure there's a little stuff that's, under the surface that we don't want to get to, but...
Okay, afraid if I will tell you, I will have to kill you.
Yeah, right. No, that's Skynet's job, right? You're stopping that, right?
Yeah, we're stopping that. Look, we have a few big things coming ahead. It's still a secret, but we do work on the perspective, how could we build trust more openly over this world? Mm-hmm. And currently using multi-framework mapping, automation, single source of truth, everything is already inside, but how can we take it to the next level and also make it in adoption for what we feel as the industry trend over security and compliance all over the world.
Right.
It can be in agile development that we can see, migration from on-prem to cloud-native environments, and also working remotely. Bring your own device. You can work anywhere.
Right.
In the 10 years ago, telling a person that he doesn't have to log through a VPN to the network, organizational network.
Right.
No one could believe it. It didn't work that way back in the days. Today, you have people that work from Thailand, and you have people that work the Americans that drive and taking an Airbnb in Thailand and still keep up their work. So
I've been doing it myself, so I know what you're talking about, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah,
right?
It's amazing, but at the same time, from what you're saying, is huge security risk.
Exactly.
Huge problem. That's very interesting. Now, we're heading to the end of the interview or discussion podcast. And I always like to end with understanding a little bit about, your advice to entrepreneurs and startupists too, and other just people in the tech space. What's your advice, kind of having gone through your journey, especially in the last 18 months, but obviously this has been longer than that for you because you've kind of learned about this at your time at EY, saw a problem, addressed it, and have grown with it. So I'd love to understand kind of what's that piece of advice, that you would say for anyone right now trying to start their own startup or in the middle of it or whatever.
Oh, I will start with just do it.
That's
don't overthink.
And you're wearing Nikes, so it's perfect.
Just do it. But if discuss more openly, I think you need to find a niche, something that is very niche. Understand the niche. See if you can find a product market fit. Just have a conversation with potential customers and try to understand how big is the market. If this is something that can actually go fast, really go big, or it's meant to be small, because maybe if it's small, it might be still a good business.
Definitely.
But maybe it's not a startup. So you need to understand, and once you understand what it's gonna be, and once you understand the product market fit, you have to get to be passionate about that, because it's working so many hours. I couldn't believe how many hours I will have to work, and weekends, every day, 14, 15 hours. So you have to be dedicated for it.
Right.
You really have to be passionate and care about it. And as long as you have this one, I think it's gonna be okay. Just go out there and try. Just go out there and try. No one knows what's gonna be. It might be a blast. It might be some failure, but you're gonna learn from experience, and that's gonna help you in your next venture.
Amazing. Well, Meiran, thank you so much for coming on. really, I wish you guys a lot of success at Saitail. You specifically, I really want to send a lot of success to you. It seems like you are very much the entrepreneur in his blood, and I'm happy you left EY for it. And just thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.